thought I was in charge. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and board, and legal, and staff. Welcome to the Wednesday, May 4th regular Township Board meeting, and we'd like you to join us in the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andy, if you would do roll call, please.
Okay, Trustee Truscott is absent and excused this evening. Trustee Marks.
Present.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard and our legal counsel Roger Zappa. Committee members present are Dave Wiegand from Planning, Recreation, and Roads, Mike Springer from Recreation and Roads, and Steve Pelto, Planning Commission Chair is here also. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Next is the approval of the consent agenda, which typically includes items such as approving the prior meeting minutes of April 5th, received committee and other reports, including the fire department business meeting draft minutes of April 11th, as well as the officers meeting draft minutes of the 11th, the road committee agenda for May 4th and draft minutes of April 5th, the planning meeting draft minutes of April 13th, and the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority draft meeting minutes of April 20th, and the stockholders meeting of April 20th. We have bills payable in the amount of $106,612.69. And we have financial statements from March and the treasurer's report from March. So if I could have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Support, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, Randy?
Just have a comment on the consent agenda in the minutes of the previous meeting. On page 3, where the motion was to direct the library subcommittee to present the Township Board consensus draft library contract to the Peter White Library Subcommittee at their next meeting. There was an error in the roll call, and it's now corrected. Trustee Pomple did not vote no. He did vote yes on that, and Trustee LaRue voted no. So that is now corrected in the minutes, and it's online as corrected also.
Okay, thank you. Would you like a new motion then? Since
Uh,
sorry, I didn't
correction,
see
that's
that.
all.
Yeah, it just has to be amended.
Pete, are you okay with that?
I'm fine.
And, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Next is the approval of the agenda. We are going to make a couple shifts, though, if the board permits. We have a couple folks here who would be available for answering questions in a couple different topics. So I would like to suggest we have Darlene Walsh here from Sands Township as the supervisor, who's going to give us some information or answer questions on the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority meeting that we attended last week or whenever that was. I lost track. I'd like to suggest, because it could be back and forth, that we add that to the forum discussion tonight. And Mr. Pelto's here to answer any questions we might have. When I was on the board as a trustee, it used to drive me crazy to have all these last-minute things. But seriously, they do happen. So you received some information from Mr. Pelto today that we forwarded, and he's here to answer questions. So we could do that in public comment, or we can add it to the agenda. It's kind of the board's preference, unless Randy has a recommendation as the clerk.
Do you wish to have it, the agenda amended?
Yes.
Yes,
Support.
okay. Where, does it make a difference then?
Yeah, I'll support John, but we'll remove we'll remove 10E and move that into the forum discussion.
Okay. And then,
If you want to add, I guess, Mr. Pelto to unfinished business, maybe?
Yes, that would
Right
be.
away, right away,
okay, we can do that.
Make
So
it A and
As
Make
everything
it A, okay.
and then move everything down. So that'll be, what will be the topic then, the offer? would
Sale
be-
of property.
Sale,
Purchase agreement. Yeah.
sale of property?
Yes. The old hall. I don't know how specific you have to be. Okay, so we have motion and support to amend the agenda with those two items.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Then we're up to public comment. So if anybody would like to address the board, please feel free. Name and address, please.
Mike Springer, Eagles Nest Road. I'm here on behalf of the rec committee. We have two important events coming up this May and June. And the first one is cleanup on May 21st. It's a Saturday from 11 till 1. We're going to be cleaning up our two parks, our Shrumwood Park and our Lions Field. And we have a number of volunteers. We also are planning to follow that up with a barbecue at Lions Field. So we hope that the community will turn out for that, help us clean up these parks. And also then, one of the reasons we're cleaning up Shrumwood is that we're going to celebrate National Trails Day, as we do every year. And that's the first Saturday in June. This year it's June 4th. And that will also, the Iron Range Roll will take place. It's going to start at 1 p.m. up in Ishpeming, probably passing through here about 1:30 to 2 and some quite a bit later. But that's a big event. We like to have volunteers for that to help with crossing and aid stations. And it's a real nice family event. And so I hope that the community comes out and supports cleaning up and also supports this event. And one other thing, when you get to 9E, I'd like to reserve time for that, please. Thank you.
The new 9E.
9F, it's now.
Oh, it's F.
Capital improvement, so.
9F.
Oh, no, okay. Hi, Dave, go ahead.
Dave Wigan, Brookton Road. I'd like to reserve time for, let's see, it would be 9B and 9C. And I could do, speak to 9B after Mark gets done making his update.
And then C as well, the contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark Davatilla, UP Engineers and Architects. I'll give the update for 9B and available for 10H. Unless it's 10G now.
NG? Okay. Anybody else wish to address the board right now? Okay. Board member comment. Anybody have anything to share or ask or? Pete, set your hand up.
Just wasn't too happy about when I found out somebody punched a hole in the warming shack over there in the building inside by on the back of the vending machine place there. And so anytime you're going around, just keep your eyes open over there. And I mean, it just makes you kind of mad and all the work that went into that thing, and now all of a sudden people are destroying it. So just keep your eyes open.
Thanks, Pete. Randy?
Yeah, we had our school bond election yesterday, and everything went well. Not a great turnout, though. 13% of the registered voters showed up, so not very good turnout, but the proposal did pass in each precinct, so, and it did pass overall, so. And I did state last meeting that I would provide everyone with the candidate list, since the withdraw date is now passed. So we have 8 candidates for 7 positions that will be going to the August primary. And they are supervisor on the Democratic side is Lynn Durant. On township clerk, Democrat is Randy Rattari. Township treasurer for Democrat is Ernest Johnson. And for township treasurer for Republican is Dan Adamini. Trustees for the Democrat is John Marks. And trustee for the Republican is Dave Wiegand, Jerome LaRue, which is Pete LaRue, and Dan Everson. So that's who is filed and will be moving forward to the August primary, August 2nd. And our last planning commission meeting was a fairly quick meeting, not as quick as some, but it was fairly quick. We did talk a little bit more about the design standards, and we are going to have a draft coming up, not coming to the board, but it will be coming back to the planning commission for more discussion. And then we'll have a work session after that. And we did talk about the CIP, which is later on the agenda. And that's all I have for right now.
So Randy, going back to the election then, independents have until July.
Yeah,
something,
independents
right?
that have no political affiliation with each party have till July 21st at 4 o'clock to file. And the requirements for independent are a little different than the other ones, so there's different signature, there's more signatures that are needed on petitions, so just make sure if anyone wants to file as an independent, they understand what those are.
So in other words, even though these candidates will be on the August ballot, there could be more people who would want to.
Yeah, the candidates I stated earlier will go to the August primary, and if they're voted forward, they will go to the November election. An independent candidate goes directly to the November election. Yeah, the independent does not have a primary to go through. They just go straight to November.
Good, thanks for that. If anybody's got any questions, that's who you call. Anybody else have anything to share or add? Nope. Okay. I didn't even get, well, some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about is on the agenda anyway. I have received a request to redo our membership for the Marquette Chamber. And Jason Schneider, the director, came last year. This is their first year now. He came last year and introduced himself, and the township is a member of that chamber. And one of the discussions was, why would we join the Marquette Chamber of Commerce? And the reason they started out that way is because most of the members who were forming that organization were from Marquette. Excuse me. And they did agree that as their membership grew and their tasks grew and what they want to accomplish grew, that their name would probably change. So they will be looking at that, and whether it becomes the Marquette Area Chamber or the Marquette County Chamber or whatever, they will be looking at that this year. So Jason may come in and ask himself, if we renew, but I told him I would bring it up. And whether or not we get the bill before he comes, we'll want to decide if we want to renew that membership. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. The County Township Association meeting was 2 weeks ago now, and a lot of that involved some of what we're talking about tonight. I don't know if, I forget who was there. Yeah.
Both Pete and I were there.
Yeah, you were
on that,
both,
so.
yeah. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Election of the officers came up, or the nominations of officers for next year, and that election will be at the May meeting and that. And there was a couple of changes, but overall, everyone stayed there and that. And the program was an individual from Eagle Mine and that, and just giving an update of what was going on in that, so. there wasn't much else going on at that point in time, unless Pete can come up with something that I missed in that.
So you just want more participation. You know, they work very hard, try to coordinate different programs and try to help each other. And it's a good, just like your chamber, you know, you get to mix, you get to talk to different people from different townships and stuff like that. In chamber, you get to talk to city, township, and others. So it's really worthwhile, and it's too bad this year we had a banquet that was planned, but we didn't get the responses back fast enough, and so they had to cancel it because you couldn't go with 20 people. So, and they always had a good dinner and a good, some entertainment as far as, you know,
And
stuff
part
like
of the
that.
meeting, too.
It is, and they have part of the meeting too, but I think it was good. The lady from Eagle Mills, she did a nice job explaining things and answered any questions we might have, so it was good.
It's all about communicating that, you know, that, getting that information out. There's 19 townships in the county, and, you know, the county association only meets once a month. It'd be nice if some of those outlying areas especially could come, because think about what they're missing out on. There's a lot going on in the county.
The weather can be a factor during the winter, but I think now would be, should not be a factor for them to come in and that.
We all basically have the same problem, just different years. You know, I mean, Ishmi and Nagani has their problem with their sewers and stuff like that. We've had them, now we're correcting ours. We're having problems with roads. Chocolate Township is having problems with their roads, and they're about 2 years behind us, I think, because they're talking about how we do this. They're watching what we do and see how it comes out and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
It's good to just throw things off the wall and just, you know, talk and discuss different things from different people, so. I get a lot out of it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it is good. We all learn something. So that's all I had to share for right now, other than what we'll go through on the rest of the agenda. So let's get into the forum discussion and talk about solid waste, because this does affect us. We're one of the municipalities that deals with this. So I typed up a little summary here, and like I said, the sand supervisor, who's mostly has the most interest, I guess, in what's happened, although we are all participants, has a lot of the background for us too. So in 1988, the 22 municipalities agreed to come together and form the Solid Waste Authority. The county had a couple of roads was one of the issues, and they needed bonding. They needed, like, what I call an umbrella organization to pull everybody together. And it wasn't until, I think, later, and I don't know when, and again, Darlene can fill in the holes here, the functionality of the county's participation came into play. Typically when, so far, at least as far as I've been a participant here, the authority usually got a hold of us somehow and said, this is what's going to happen. We know we need to raise rates, or we need to, it's mostly raising rates, it's not so much buying equipment, but they would inform the municipalities of what they were doing. Well, lo and behold, or in fact, if you remember, we just approved or agreed with their new director that they wanted to hire not being an engineer, not having an engineering degree. And if you're thinking like I was, I figured they had a really good candidate that was probably very qualified, didn't have the degree, and they didn't want to lose him. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just guessing. And maybe that's what everybody thought, because we did agree with it. And I'm assuming the rest of the authority, at least a majority, also agreed. Sometime around September of last year, it's my understanding that the legal counsel for the authority, who also happens to be a county board member, suggested that the county be removed from the authority. And if you read some of what I handed out tonight, and you may have seen that before, there was a lot of discussion, and I'm not sure if Ms. Walsh brought it up or someone else did, or it was her board passed this, agreeing that there were ramifications to making that kind of a recommendation. The authority passed it, I believe it was unanimous, to remove the county from the intergovernmental agreement that had been formed 20-some years ago, or 18, yeah, 18. So there were three main issues that Ms. Walsh brought up, and through her board. When I say her, I'm saying her board too, because they all agreed to this. They first said that the motion to remove the county was invalid because the contract, and I'm not sure how much you've read, or if you have it, I can get it to you. The agreement goes back and forth with, it refers to the municipalities, the constituent municipalities, and the county. And it's kind of back and forth like that. And I thought I remember reading in one case that it was 23 members. I thought there was one reference to 23 members. The authority says it's only 22 in the county. So that was part of the discussion that we had at their annual meeting last month. So removing the county was not valid according to what Sands Township is saying. The second thing was that the county then, when this was set up, had authority to approve appointments. So if the county is removed, and then this whole thing is huge. If the county's removed, what happens to their appointments? You know, it's one way or the other, something has to be decided. Either they have to be removed and someone else has to be appointed, and then who would do that? Or, you know, there's crazy little angles to this that can't be answered. The third thing was the conflict by position, is what Ms. Walsh is calling this. There's a conflict of interest, but in this case, a county board member is the authority's attorney. So, Ms. Welch has been, trying to get information, getting opinions and ideas and stuff. They hired an attorney, got an opinion that says none of this is right. The county should not have been removed. Then their appointments come into play, and the attorney really needs to be off of that position if he's a county board member. So she brought that to the authority. That didn't work. The authority went and got their opinion from their attorney, who's on the county board, who says, basically I should not be removed. So the authority, or the County Township Association, I think it was, who recommended that we go to MTA, we collectively. So they did, and we got an opinion from Rob Thal, who agreed with the Sands Township attorney, saying this is not good. So in the annual meeting, it was held up in the County Township of the authority's board. There was a lot of discussion on this, and I've said that they just talked in circles. There was no conclusion. And finally, and I don't remember exactly who, it might have been Ms. Pello, said, I think we need an attorney general opinion. So they decided to do that. And some of how that process worked was explained, and they decided they would go through Representative Kivala to make a request for the AG opinion. And they did, so that's what I printed for you tonight. Darlene sent that to me yesterday. So this is information, again. Darlene doesn't really know where this is going, what the next step would be, but it does affect us. It affects how their organization operates. And if I don't misspeak for Darlene, she's just saying, or they're saying, the authority needs to work within the confinement of the intergovernmental agreement that's in place. So what our participation will be, I don't know if we want to, how we want to do this, if we want to support. Our attorney is aware of this, and I thought he had typed something up. He said no, he really didn't. If we want to ask him to get involved, and pay him to do this. So nothing really has to be decided tonight, because again, this is a forum discussion anyway. But I asked Darlene if she was available, if she wanted to come and answer questions. It's quite a web of details and 18 years or whatever. So that's it in a nutshell. Does it make sense, or anybody have issues or comments or questions?
I'd like to hear what Darlene's going to say.
Great. Would you mind? You can expound on whatever.
I was gonna say, you want me over here?
Yes,
or-
please.
Yeah,
Because of the microphone, I had a lady call me last month and say, people are not speaking into the microphone.
Okay. Well, I'll start by saying that I now know more about the Marquette County Solid Waste Management
Your name?
Authority than I ever dreamed.
Yeah,
I
why
would
don't you,
know.
why don't you give us name
I'm
and,
Darlene Walsh, and I'm the Sands Township Supervisor.
thank you.
And actually, just a couple of, Lynn did a good job of summarizing this, but a couple of quick corrections. It's been 28 years that this has been in effect, since 1988 was when this was signed. And I think that there's some confusion between whether the county is a constituent municipality versus a user municipality. The intergovernmental agreement makes reference to both. And our contention in Sands Township is that Article 6.5 of the intergovernmental agreement was inappropriately used to remove the county without consulting with the constituent municipalities. Because Article 6.5 deals with whether or not you have a waste hauling agreement. And to complicate it, only part of Article 6.5 was invoked. Because 6.5 also says that if a constituent municipality is removed, there shall be a monetary component that goes with it, and that has not been put into place. The question about the appointments, the county's appointees to the Waste Management Authority, if you look at it, our contention is that the county was not removed as they should have been, therefore they're still a part of it. And so, yes, they still do have their 3 appointees, but if they are in fact removed, then they should not be in a position to appoint people to the Management Authority Board because they're no longer a constituent municipality. The intergovernmental agreement has a few challenges, but for the most part, it has been functioning and doing well for 28 years, and it's only been in the last couple of years that all of a sudden things have sort of taken an odd direction. We find it a little interesting that when, as Lynn alluded to, when they wanted to change the terms of office for the authority board members, they polled the constituent municipalities, which is what is called for in the intergovernmental agreement. When they wanted to change the director's position description, they polled municipalities, which is what is called for. It does not take a unanimous vote, but it does take 3/4, and so that was not unanimous because Sands Township didn't agree with it, I know for sure, but it did pass, so okay. However, when it came to removing the county, which I feel is a fairly significant change, they decided not to poll the constituent municipalities and instead tried to work around it by pulling in Article 6.5. Then the third piece is whether there is a conflict of interest, and this is another one that I've had to do some research on because I thought I knew conflict of interest and found out that I didn't, because there is a conflict that is an incompatibility of office and another type of conflict of interest which we're more familiar with when you've got financial or some other type of interaction. And what we're saying is that there is an incompatibility of office because the attorney who is advising the authority board is on the county, he sits as a county commissioner at this point. And so basically, how can you be advising the county waste management authority when you are a county commissioner? And I believe that their thinking on this is that, well, because the county's not a member anymore, it's okay. So we did consult with the attorney that Sands Township had used in the past on the landfill, and that was Mr. Phil Grasshoff from downstate. He and I had several discussions. He believed that this was inappropriate. When I explained that to the Solid Waste Management Authority Board, they did not want to take Mr. Grasshoff's opinion because he had been instrumental in writing the intergovernmental agreement, and they felt that he had a conflict of interest. Yeah, I have to smile. Sorry. As a result, some of us got together and discussed it and said, okay, I believe that I can understand that, so we will get an attorney that is not involved at all, and that's when we went downstate to a firm that deals with township law, and we got Mr. Robert Thaw to do an opinion for us, and I believe that was sent to all the constituent municipalities, so all of you should have been able to see that. Mr. Thaw agreed that it was inappropriate to remove the county the way that it was done. He said that while their appointments still stand because they're still a member, and he said undoubtedly there is a conflict of interest. When that was presented to the authority board, they pretty much dismissed that and said they didn't agree with it, and consulted with their attorney, and now they are moving to seek an attorney general's opinion. I believe that you received today a copy of the letter that accompanied their request to Mr. Kivala for an attorney general's opinion, and I think part of this letter is indicative of the situation that we're facing. Part of our concern is that they have been progressively getting a little bit more bold with the decisions that they make and not consulting the constituent municipalities. The letter, and I've got a couple of quotes from it. The one is that the chair found a signed document that, quote, seemed to suggest that Marquette County was a constituent municipality. Well, that document is the original intergovernmental agreement, and in the definitions, Marquette County is defined as a constituent municipality. And after reading through, when you get down near the end of the letter, they talk about the conflict of interest. A second issue is whether there is a statutory conflict. One of the Marquette County Commissioners is also an attorney in the law firm which represents the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority. Additionally, if there is a conflict, can the parties, the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority and Marquette County, waive the conflict? I find that a very interesting request because I didn't realize that you could request to waive a conflict of interest. So as Lynn said, we don't quite know what the next step is. I've been in touch with Mr. Rob Ball. One suggestion, and I will be bringing this up with our township board next Tuesday when we meet, is that we draft another letter to the Solid Waste Management Authority asking on behalf of the constituent municipalities, and we would be coming back to you to say, do you agree and are you willing to sign on to this? That if you insist that 6.5 is appropriate, then invoke the remainder of 6.5 and assess the financial penalty to the county as is called for in that intergovernmental agreement. I'm not quite sure exactly where this is going to go, but I see enough problems and my board sees enough problems that I think that we need to continue to pursue this. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but that is what Sands Township.
John, you had something?
The first comment I'd like to make is thank you for your service.
You're welcome. It's been an education, let's put it that way, tuition free.
Yeah, and it's not unusual after listening to what's going on there, that this is the Solid Waste Management Authority area. I think we just have to kind of await the outcome of your efforts with getting a document prepared for us to co-sign. It makes sense. It always has made sense to me that while the county itself is not a waste producer, it certainly serves as the appropriate umbrella organization with knowledge about what's going on all over the county and can serve in that capacity. So I'm not sure, except this looks like a power grab in some way by some part of the authority. So I think we need to await the outcome of the document that you're going to be preparing, and work with our people, and then come back, and I think you're going to find encouragement to go ahead and support.
When you're talking about municipalities, they were referred to as stockholders, right? The stockholders of the Marquette Solid Waste, they refer to it as
It may have
stock.
been stakeholders.
Stakeholders or
Yeah, I
stockholders?
think it was
Stakeholders.
stakeholders.
All right, stakeholders, excuse me. But they also were asked to rescind the motion, they would not do that,
That is
correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Our proposal was that they rescind the motion, and it was from September of 2014, and go back to the way that things were, and that they seek a new attorney firm because of the conflict. And they did not do that.
They don't feel they've done anything wrong.
Well, I think they're gonna find out they did, so.
It was also suggested that maybe Sands Township draft what would be like a rebuttal, I suppose, to the AG request and send it right to the AG. And see, I don't know if you want to do that, but Randy suggested that might be a way of getting your side or our side or, you know, the other thought. And it's not mentioned in there at all that the attorney they refer to is the one who is their attorney, who's on the county, and who suggested this in the beginning.
That is
That's just
correct.
totally eliminated, you know, for the general to consider. Ernie, did you have something?
Yeah, a couple of things. In reading through this quickly in that, I look at what our county board chairman indicated in 98, which he's on the board. I was on the township board in 92, and everything I can try to remember now is that the county board was always considered a member of the solid waste committee, solid waste at that time. There was no differential at all in that. Hard to go back in memory that many years, but still, what I do remember is that. I also was involved with township in other ways prior to being on the board, and that there was a lot of things going on trying to form this authority. There was one of the supervisors from, was it Ely Township, or that was greatly involved with it up on the west end, in the development of it and that too. I can't think of his name right now. And
Weston and East End, yeah.
there, so, and so that's why I take exception saying that he didn't think the county board was part of it. And that I don't agree with that. And another one, like the conflict of interest, I really find that interesting where the county legal counsel provided an opinion saying the county could be removed, the county board voted on it, okay, I could see that. But then the waste management, they just says, okay, we're gonna remove them without doing their own research in that, which is, I take exception to the individuals on the authority not doing their homework and finding out themselves if that's legal to do in that. The other one is the conflict of interest. You can call it what you want, a board member and also being legal counsel. That doesn't make sense to me. I have a great problem with that, so. That's just from picking them out from what I've heard now in the last 3-4 months and that too, so, that's all.
Anybody else have anything else?
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming, I appreciate
You will
it.
hear Sands Township again, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks a
Thank you.
lot for coming, Darlene. Information is always good. All right, unfinished business, 9A. Yep. Oh, and I do want to welcome our students. Do we have 4 tonight? Thank you for reminding me, Randy. Welcome. I usually make you get up, and we'll do that later. At least tell us who you are, since
Sit up
Steve's
and
already
dance.
standing. Well, no, that's fine, that's okay. You're good. We'll kind of stick with the agenda that we're supposed to, but there'll be a test after, so, I'm kidding. But yes, thanks for coming. We did receive, for our board now, we did receive a purchase agreement on the sale of the Old Township property, and it's not on the agenda. I was kind of deferring to the manager and legal as to how to do this, because it's my first. So I might defer to them now on how we want to proceed. Like I said, it's not part of the agenda,
It
but
is now.
it's timely,
We-
yes.
We added it to the
Yeah,
agenda.
but I mean, it was not the original intent until yesterday.
Well, structurally, and I'll let Roger deal with the legal side of it, but structurally, you have added it to the agenda as an unfinished business item. It's unfinished because we have talked about this in the past, and the last action that the board took was to contract with Look Realty through Mr. Pelto to market the properties for us. And you had given him the opportunity to bring back proposals as he received those, which this is a proposed purchase agreement from 906 Technologies. So it's your first look at it, basically in terms of whether it meets your requirements in terms of what you're looking for the properties at the Township Hall and the garage. This is for, excuse me, the 2 physical buildings, not including the 5 acres across the street. So it is before you this evening as a proposal for your consideration.
You want to chime in, Roger? Is there anything you want to add, or?
There's nothing, since it's a regularly scheduled meeting and the agenda has been properly amended, it's proper to be addressed.
Go ahead, Ernie.
Because this is a purchase, we can't go into closed session. And that-
Correct.
If it was a sale of property, we could go in closed session, so.
And Mr. Menzie is here, Joe Menzie is here as well from 906, if you have any questions with regard to what their intention for the property is.
I don't know if Steve has anything to add before I make another comment?
Well, just for the record, my name is Steve Pelto, Look Realty. Actually, I am here in regards to the old Township Hall. We do have in front of you a very strong offer from Township Technology. We made an offer of $500,000. We do have plans, I'm going to let Joe have that privilege, probably what the plans are. We'll go into some detail on that. We plan on getting this building back on the tax rolls, probably doubling what they're paying for this as far as an addition and everything else. So it's going to be a great addition to the township. This is not an area, or excuse me, a business that we want to lose in the township also. As I said, their offer is $500,000. They do have some contingencies. One is to make sure that it is feasible to be able to utilize the building. That's number one. 2 is they're contingent upon financing. They've already talked to the banks. They're going to be fine there. And number 3 is there's an inspection on the property also. Okay. Excuse me, I guess there'd be 4 altogether, because it'd be the estimates to make sure they come in within budget. But they've already been talking to the contractor on this building. Now you're looking, okay, we're less than what the appraisal price is. So I just wanted to give you a little background on some properties that I've handled just in the last year that have sold in appraised values and what they had sold for before, just to give you an idea. If we look at one that was in the city, the former J.T. Shapp, I sold that back in 2011 for $530,000. Right and Flip has put in approximately $100,000 into the building. I sold it this past January for $495,000. They took that much of a loss, and plus they took the full fee. 2152 US 41 Household Appliance. It was appraised November 2012, $1,250,000. Sold July 2015, $880,000. Building Bonanza, as we all know. We finally sold that this year. It was appraised 2013 for $1,350,000. We sold it for $909,000. All these are public record. I just wanted to show you the appraised value versus what it actually sold for. Appraised value is a value of opinion. It's what somebody's going to do. But if you have any questions of me, if not, I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Anybody have anything for Steve?
This is just a garage in the,
The garage and the building, not the,
Mhm.
not the property.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, so you heard Steve's take on everything, and I wanted to let you know that 906, we've grown substantially since we've been here in the township. But we've also purchased another business in the interim, which is an engineering and hydraulic electrical engineering firm, and that is currently on the upswing. We predicted that this company within 2 years is going to be bigger than 906. So hence is why we need the garage space, to be quite honest with you, for the development work that we're doing. That business just landed a $5 million contract. So our hopes are within 2 years we'll be employing approximately 100 people in what we need to do to develop that property to make it not only aesthetically pleasing, we plan to go 2 stories up on top, but then just the equipment and power requirements and within our budget is what dictated our offer price. So I will leave the floor open for any questions you folks may have.
On top of the existing office, Joe, you build on top of that.
Right.
And parking's not going to be an issue for you as far as
Well, we would have parking on
following?
top and on bottom as well, so it'll be a little bit of a concern. And our hope is that, we generate enough revenue, we would look to expand parking. We're hoping that a lot across the street will be available in a year or so still, and that's not good for you, but it would be good for us at that time, because I'm quite sure we'll be in a position to purchase that for additional parking. Like I said, the anticipated growth, I mean, we are, of the engineering company, we are holding off on contracts right now, like you would believe, because we have to ramp up for, we're doing a lot of design work and selling a lot of that. But we have strong interest from companies to start doing production on devices that we currently have patented. We have 29 patents with the company that we purchased with it. So, parking will make it work.
Anything else?
I
Ernie?
think that to follow up on that, it's kind of a mixed bag trying to do a negotiation in an open meeting and that too, so makes a problem. I would suggest for board consideration is that all the board members put together their thoughts, one way or another, and get them to the supervisor and the clerk. Let the clerk go through them, put them together, find out what you come up with, and let them start moving forward and just keep the board as a whole informed on that. Like I say, I'm a little concerned with trying to do negotiations in an open meeting at this point in time.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'll make myself available for any of the board members at any time, as well as Lee. So we can get together as a group and do a work session and talk about this, or whatever you guys, however you guys deem necessary.
I don't think we can even do a work session at this point in time, so I don't know.
It'd be a public meeting.
It would be a public meeting then, so. I don't know what the other board members think about something like this. Put together your thoughts, get them to the supervisor and the clerk, and let them combine them, and then move forward at that point, and let the rest of the board know.
No, this would be, you could authorize the clerk and the supervisor within parameters to commit to an offer as well, outside of a board meeting. It would have to come back to you for finalizing, but the negotiation could take place outside. Joe, do you have any drawings or anything that you could provide to the board so they have a kind of a visual concept of what it is you're talking about?
We don't at this time. We're working with IDI on
Okay.
that, but we will definitely forward them to you as soon as we have them available.
They don't need full plan sets, just a rough concept of what it is that you're looking at, just so they have an idea of what the final product would look like.
You want to make that a motion?
I'll make it a motion then. Did you understand what I said, Mr. Clerk?
I got a tape recorder.
So,
We need a second before we.
Unless you need clarification on the motion.
well, I'll support it, but I want to understand exactly what's being said here. I agree with the proposal that the board, within some limited time, advance to the clerk and the supervisor their thoughts of this if they have some concerns that they want to express, dollar-wise or whatever. Then I think that the second suggestion that was made, that the clerk and the supervisor be authorized to make an offer once we've had a session where it is agreed and a go-ahead is given. I'm not putting that into the motion, I'm just saying that I think that that's the material way that you have to approach this. And so with that, I will again concur with the motion that's been made.
Did you stipulate to have another meeting?
I think,
You said a work
I think
session.
the board has to, as a whole, approve it. So if you can go through and put together all the thoughts and come up with some kind of a document and convey it to the board, and then we'll move forward and get it taken care of, one way or another, and that, by the next board meeting and that.
Does that work, Roger, or?
Please put a time limit on the time period for the board to advance their thoughts.
Just to be clear, there can be no deliberation or discussion as far as, well, I think this is a good idea or a bad idea between the members. That cannot occur. There's nothing wrong with compiling a document, a piece of paper from each board member and submitting it necessarily, but there cannot be any deliberation among the board members about this is what I put in my recommendation or concerns. So,
Be directly to us.
and that is why you should then be convening either in a work session or a board meeting to further discuss that, but that then should shorten perhaps the length of that meeting, because people will have had some time to put those thoughts together in advance.
Work session,
Do we have any, oh, Dan, go ahead.
After we have given our thoughts to the supervisor and clerk, can they compile them and give back to the board members their feelings as to how they feel the board is going or what they're looking at?
That would be at the meeting, right? The work session.
Well, I mean, prior to, I mean, there'll be no discussion.
Two questions there. The first one is compilation by the supervisor or the clerk is fine. I think it would be preferable to have that information disseminated to the board at either the work session or public meeting, well, they're both public meetings, work session or board meeting, whichever the board should decide to do. The distinction being that you can't take action at a work session, but you can take action at a regular meeting, or a special meeting for that matter. You could decide that you're going to do this within 7 days and have a special meeting with the proper notice under the Open Meetings Act, of course.
Okay. Yes, Ernie?
Do we think, is it possible to get everything to the supervisor and the clerk by Monday, 5 o'clock?
It'd be up to you guys, if you can.
5 o'clock, and then let them go through and put it all together and get it back to us for the next meeting and that.
That's another 10 days, though.
Unless you want a work session.
I think, yeah, special meeting might be,
Would have to be a special meeting before we make a work session, just a work session.
do we need that as part of the motion if we want to schedule a special meeting too? Can we do that?
Supervisor and clerk have the ability to schedule a special meeting really at any time.
It doesn't have to be part of the.
No.
But you could have a work session, and if you have questions within each other, we can ask them at that point.
Well, we still can at a special meeting too. That would be the
Right,
only
exactly,
topic
yeah.
anyway.
Be a single item agenda.
I think I don't want to necessarily wait. My opinion is not to wait till the next meeting. I'd rather see it happen sooner than later.
Well, and 906
Wanna
needs,
add?
906 needs some guidance as to whether they go forward with their planning or not.
And that's exactly my thought, is that, number one, we need to do this in a timely manner, but number two is that after the clerk and supervisor gets the information, is there a way that they can talk to me so that I can then talk to 906, so that they're not coming to the meeting blindsided, so that at least we know where we're at? Is that legal to do?
No, because we want to bring it out at that special meeting,
Okay, so I can't bring it
not
back
ahead of
to
time,
before-
because it wouldn't be board approved yet to bring it, in my mind.
The preference would be to have it, because otherwise you're going to have information divulged that hasn't even been disseminated to the board yet.
Discussed by the board itself, yeah.
Okay, so if you do bring it then back and we have the special meeting, at that time, let's say that if you agree upon it, there's no question. If you don't agree upon it, there's something else. At that point, can we have a discussion in between 906 and the board as far as coming together?
Yes,
that's
I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
Because a special meeting is like it's like a board meeting, so
Right.
we
Oh, yeah.
can make a
Okay.
motion then and
I just
everything.
wanna make sure
Yeah,
that we're all on the same page, that's all.
okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, then, I would recommend it, if we're gonna have, by Monday at 5 o'clock, I would suggest that on the 10th, there's a water meeting here at 6 o'clock, open meeting. So I would suggest that if it's possible, I could see us having a quick special meeting at 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the 10th.
I believe that's a public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you could easily do a short meeting before it.
How does that sound?
That
I mean,
sounds-
we've got a motion on the floor, and we're already talking about the date, but,
That can be called later, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
dealt with now.
The supervisor and the clerk can call it.
yeah, okay. So as far as the motion goes, do we have any other questions or issues with that?
So to be clear in the motion, it'll be to get the comments to the clerk and the supervisor, and we'll compile them. And then, we're not negotiating, so.
Okay. Right, but then
So-
if they have a Monday deadline and we try to call a meeting Tuesday, we still have to set the meeting up ahead of time.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, I would suggest for expediency, you just set the meeting now, if that's what
You
you're
can always
targeted
cancel.
doing. Set it for half an hour before the public hearing on the 10th.
okay, so
the motion?
the motion will be to get your comments to the clerk and supervisor by next Monday at 5 o'clock. And then the second, I can't speak for the motion maker, because this wasn't in there, but
I will amend my motion to include a special meeting at 5 o'clock on
the following Tuesday.
following Tuesday, May 10th.
Okay. Is that good with trustee Marks?
Yes, John?
Okay with you, John, on the 10th?
Yes.
All
Okay.
right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
See you Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Is that quick enough for you people?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I just wanna get it on the tax roll.
I know, sir.
So do I, so do I. You're all hurt, Joe.
Kind of keeps us here for a long time. Right? So, thank you all.
So I will post that special meeting tomorrow then,
Okay.
okay?
Well, that covers that. Do we miss anything, Roger?
No, I think you've got it covered, and if something comes up as the meeting's being posted, I'm in tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's bring our kids up real quick to the podium. Speak loudly and tell us your name and what school you were doing this from or for or class.
Each one of you have to come up.
Come on up.
Especially if you want your paper signed.
I'll
Whatever.
come up.
Hi,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Senya Pullman, and I'm from Marquette Senior High School, and I'm doing this. I'm coming here for my government class.
Thank you.
A senior, you said,
Yes,
at the
I'm
high
a
school?
senior.
Okay, great, thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Holly Blowers, and I'm also a senior at Marquette Senior High School, and I'm also doing this for my government class.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen,
Hi, I'm Evan Duros from Marquette Senior High School, senior classes.
okay.
Chris Austin, Marquette Senior High School, senior, government class.
Great. Well, I hope you learned something. We've already gone through a contract, so that should teach you something. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, we're up to 9B, Local Roads Rehab Update. Dave, did you want to speak before Mark or after? Okay.
Alrighty, just give a quick update. Talking to Payne and Dolan for the work that was postponed from 2015. Doesn't sound like, or it's sounding like the weight restrictions will be lifted May 16th. So they'll be starting May 16th. They still feel comfortable about finishing by June 17th. So there shouldn't be any issue with that job. The work for the 2016 project and the South Vanderboom, the bid opening is set for June 1st. So in the meantime, we're just kind of waiting around. hopefully by June 1st, we can get the results from the bid opening and have a contractor on board. The June 7th meeting, make it start mid-June, right when we get the bond. Other than that, not a whole lot of developments until construction actually begins. I know we met this week with Lynn and Randy and Dave concerning some residential complaints about debris from chip seal, possible chip seal, and also happens that the county is planning on performing sweeping in some of those areas mid to late June. That helps out a lot.
Any questions for Mark? Pete?
What a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, what will people do if they got, if they got these little chips in their yard? If they go 3-4 feet into the yard, 4 or 5 feet, they're gonna go down, sweep the roads. Are they to sweep those out into the road, on the edge?
Yeah, it would be best to sweep everything into the road. That way when the sweeper does come, pick everything up. I know when we met with Farner, the contractor that did the chip sealing, their opinion, and it was kind of my opinion too, I guess, at the same time, was 2% of it was chip seal, 98% is sand from plowing operations. There's a lot of that in there as well. There's also smaller rocks.
Why do they have that? Why is there so many, little rocks in it? Because we have several people asking us about it and telling they're complaining about all the rocks in it and their lawns and that. So why is that happening?
It's snow plowing operations, I know the chip seal contractor explained it in technical detail about snow plows coming and scraping off parts of little jagged rocks sticking out. Those little rocks out there get pushed across by the snow plow, and the snow piles up in their yards with the rocks and the sand, and then eventually melts down. Now you have all those rocks and little fragments and sand piled up in that dirt up 6 feet away from the.
Are they gonna expect this every year, that they're gonna have all these rocks in their yard or pebbles?
They'll probably have sand and other rocks every year from.
Because what happens is when you put this down, the chips lay on top, and then the first year they sort of smooth it off with the plows and that's what's going into the yards, correct?
Well, it's that, a mixture of that and sand. I would say every year you're gonna have sand.
But they
Or
can't
chips,
sweep it
a
out
lot of
into the
chips.
road, so they'll take care of it then.
Yeah, the process, the chip seal process basically is a 3-step process. First you put down an emulsion, it's like a super glue basically. You put the small gravel, the fines on top of that, let it sit for a period of time while cars pack it in basically, and then you fog seal. You come across and put a sealer on it. And what Mark is referring to is that not all of the gravel gets compacted by the cars driving on it, and you have some that are sticking up, and basically what happens is the wintertime, and in winter operations with the plows are scraping that surface, so they're breaking off those elements that are up above, depositing them at the side of the road, then as they plow the road, it throws it up over, particularly where there are curbs, in areas where you have curbing, because it congregates at the curb, gets thrown up on the yard. Will it be a continuing process? It'll be a reducing process, because basically you're continuing to compact that road down, and it gets more and more compact and harder. So you'll have it less. But again, it depends on the plowing activity. If you have a heavy winter with a lot of snow with a lot of plowing, probably going to have some more.
Year after it,
Yes.
they clean off the top, the rocks, and then.
It is. The first year is the worst year, and it decreases after that. And then now remember, as we've got a road project, and Dave is going to speak to this to some extent, but our road project also has a maintenance aspect to it. 3 years of construction, and then the remaining 10 to 12 years would be maintenance. And on these roads that had the chip seal treatment, as those start to wear and start to deteriorate, they will then be subject to the next level of treatment, which is an overlay. So that's part of that rotating, that continuing maintenance plan. Our objective here is to keep the roads at a specific level for at least 12 to 15 years.
I just wanted people to understand what's happening and why it's happening and what could they expect. So they can expect to start mid-June or something like that, the sweeper's gonna come out and start sweeping these roads up. And if you want,
Actually-
you can take and push that stuff out into the edge of the road and they'll sweep it up.
And actually, they started today. We had our crews out because it was wet, and it was a little bit damp, so we had our building and grounds crew out with our sweeper cleaning off the pedestrian ways, putting the sand in the road, because the road commission has committed to, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, of finishing Marquette Township. They started today. They started some of the intersections that had fairly significant sand accumulation in the intersections, so bicyclists, motorcyclists, things such as that are not going to have that hazard, but then they will be coming back and doing their normal sweeping. As would be expected, they did the US 41 first, and in doing that, they lost one of their 2 sweepers. It's in for repairs right now. So I would suspect within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have been done.
Better get out right.
Anything else for Mark? Yeah, that was a good meeting, as I said, getting a little more in depth on what's happening with the roads, what already did happen.
Yeah, getting into technical detail.
Yeah, it makes more
Contractor
sense.
stuff.
And that way, when people ask, I mean, I was just reading a letter from one of the residents who appreciated that the county was out sanding, or getting rid of the sand already. He's on parts of West Fair Avenue, and his wife were worrying about the cyclists and the pedestrians, because that's a busy road. So he thanked all of us for seeing to that. But we're still kind of at the mercy of the road commission with that kind of stuff. Can't do too much. Anything else for Mark?
Mark, you are gonna, people are asking about finishing up from last year. You stated in their meeting before this that they're all gonna start finishing up on the shoulders and stuff like that.
For the work that was postponed, yeah, that's Van and Dolan's looking to start. They were looking to start on the 9th, but with the weight restrictions not, were anticipated to be listed off on the 16th. That's when they can actually start, so. They'll start at Badger, Bancroft, Bodwine, down there, May 17th.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good? Okay, thanks, Mark. Dave?
3 things to bring up with relation to the road project is one, for anybody that's listening to this on TV, it might sound like we're just kind of passing the buck on the debris. But sitting in that meeting with Farner and UPEA, they actually did a good explanation of how they determined that was actually being shaved off by the snowplow. And it was the size of the aggregate that was laying up in the lawn. The original aggregate is 5/16. And what they found the majority of up in the lawns is finer stuff that suggests that it's what's being shaved off the top that's sticking through the seal coat. The other thing was the road committee meeting tonight. We discussed 2 things. One was we would like to continue to work with UPEA and see if we can find a solution to the walking trail along South Vandenboom before they get to the point of putting asphalt down on that. See if we can't find some cheaper alternative. Mark said he'd work with us on it, see if we can come up with something with the contractor. Just to let you know that we'll probably bring something in front of you after the contracts are awarded and we actually get to talk to the contractor. The last thing was a related subject, and Pete alluded to it earlier, is we're getting to the point where the road committee would like to get some direction from the board on developing the asset management program for the roads. We've got about another year and a half, and we're going to have to start looking at the maintenance program for the roads we fixed. Some of those roads that were fixed last year, by the time we get to the 2017 season, are already going to be candidates for some maintenance, crack seals and stuff like that. That asset management program has to be developed yet. put that together as I suggested in the letter I sent you for our wish list for the county. It's not a capital outlay extensive program. It's Road Soft is free to the township because we're part of the county. Phaser ratings are free to the township because we're part of the county. It's more the staff time that it takes to actually operate the program once it's put together. It's going to be a little time intensive to put the program together to bring a recommendation back to the board. We just want to make sure that that's what the board intends us to do as far as the road committee goes. So we're looking for some direction there. And other than that, that was all I had.
So if the board remembers, our committees work for us. They're not autonomous other than the planning commission. That's a little different because they have different statutory responsibilities and abilities, but the road committee or the events committee or any of those really need direction from us, and that's what Dave's asking for. And how are you seeing the input of this? Are you thinking one of the staff members in the planning department, or is it something
Jason, the planner,
the committee could do?
attended the committee tonight, or the meeting tonight, and he wanted to take a look at a couple different asset management programs other than RoadSoft. And as a fallback position, if he doesn't find anything that looks promising out there, the fallback would be to RoadSoft. I would think the committee initially would work to set it up and work with the planner to get it set up, but I would think the planner would be the one to work with it on an annual basis to publish the reports, and we should have a report annually. I would think in the December, January range, that as a recommendation for the repairs we need to consider for the next year.
So
As part of this millage was the maintenance on it for the next 15 years.
How labor intensive would that be for the
I
planning
don't think it's going to be that bad. I think once and again, we're looking for a nod to go ahead and start looking at it. I don't think it's going to be that intensive to operate once it's put together. I think it will take pretty much the rest of this year to put it together and get somebody up to speed on how to operate it. There's a lot of information that has to be entered. In my experience with the Road South program, when we put the millage proposal together, there's a lot of work that has to be done with it, but I found Michigan Tech, who put the Road South program together, they'll spend countless hours with you to make sure you've got it right and get your questions answered. There's no charge for that. So it's more time than anything else. But I think once it's all done, developed, all the information is entered, the staff time to actually publish the reports is simply going to be a matter of entering the updated Phaser ratings for the roads and then printing the report and recommended maintenance.
And who does the update on the Phaser ratings? Would that be the planner's determination, or?
You can, again, it's up to the board. You can either wait for the county to submit their Phaser ratings, which come along every 2 or 3 years. I don't think that we have that kind of a luxury to wait around until they decide to do those. The planner is, or was at one time, a certified Phaser analyst. He could be again with a refresher course, I'm sure. It's not that difficult to update the Phaser rating. It's pretty much it's a visual look at the surface of the roads and just changing the Phaser rating is. And then the number of things kick in there. There's one that you have to have an updated Phaser rating. You also have to have the Phaser ratings entered from as many observations as you can find. Go back as many different ratings. If you can get 3 or 4 in there into the RoadSoft program, then it will give you a better timeline on the deterioration of the road and what the recommended repairs are. The other one is to get, once the repair is done, to get the Phaser rating changed. You got to go in and tell the program that this is the repair that was done, and it will automatically put into its algorithms as to what the next recommended repair for.
So it sounds like it's going to have to be, it's not something he can do on December 30th and give to the board. It's going to have to be a little more intensive over the year.
Yeah,
If he gets out to
initially.
so many streets
initially it will.
But I mean, even to update those, you're not just gonna have a 7 rating and then change it in the computer to 6. You want them to go out and actually look at it.
The program will automatically change them. Once all the roads are done and we go through, and they're not all gonna be a Pacer 9 or a 10, there will be some variation between 7 and 10. And once those are updated, and the program takes a look back at what the Pacer ratings were before, and then you have to tell it what treatment was just done to the road, because that is the basis by which it recommends the next treatment. Once all those things are entered in initially, the only time you go in and change a Pacer rating is if the county does their Pacer rating, or if we go out and do a repair on 3 or 4 streets that were recommended by Roadsoft, you go out and do the repair. You change the Pacer rating on those streets that you effected a repair on, you just tell them what you did to it. Or tell the computer what you did to it, and it does this whole algorithm thing where it comes out with the next recommended repair on that given street. And if you recall, we did this originally, Roadsoft recommended it was going to be $183,000 annually for maintenance on the road system. And that's what it was recommending to set aside for that. And that's pretty much what it's going to give you, except if you ask it, it will tell you in 2018 what roads it recommends for what treatments. It won't recommend something for all the roads. It will just recommend crack seal on this one. It won't recommend broadband crack seal on this one. It does that based on
The information.
the
it's
Pacer
in.
ratings and what it anticipates the deterioration of the road's going to be.
Dan, did you have something?
Yes, rather than using staff taking away their time, per the email we got from Jason Snyder, that NMU internship, they're looking for interns' jobs. I think that's something we should be looking at.
We did have one intern a couple years ago that was really beneficial for us. Good idea. So, do we actually need a motion if we want to direct the committee, or just consensus? Pete?
Then, as you remember, I know Dave and Mike and we all, from the road committee, when we discussed this with our residents, we told them what we're gonna do, and some of the residents, oh yeah, we're gonna fix them, then you're gonna even go to heck. So no, it's set up so you have a maintenance fee in there. So we're gonna go back and we explain the phaser report, that you get them up to a 9 or a 10, 4 or 5 years, they're gonna go bounce back to a 6, and then we go back and do another coating or covering or whatever. So that's all part of what we told the residents. So, you know, it's all part of the plan. And before I forget, Vanderboom is part of our long-range plan as far as widening that road up and put access for bikes in that to get down from our trail down to Rookton. So we should get on that, because if you do it all at one time, it'd be a lot cheaper than waiting and coming back in 2 or 3 years and go back and trying to widen that road up again. So that was our goal, to get that done. So I think we should pursue that. And also, you know, get back to the roads and that. We have to keep up our roads, because that's our promise to them. So, I mean, we sat in here for 18 minutes, 18 meetings, just explaining that, and then I think that was a big sell, you know, except Dave and his personality and that, so, you know. But that's our commitment to them, and I think we have to honor that and explain it more, again, how that works, you know, back and forth, so. Thank you.
Randy?
I'll move to charge the road committee with developing an asset management program, working with township staff, so Dan's suggestion could be implemented.
Support.
And that'll be the charge for them, so.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank
Just
you.
one quick comment about the South Vanderboom project that Pete was talking about. The original estimate we got to put a path from the Iron Ore Heritage Trail up to Grove Street, I think was $173,000. And obviously money is tight in our budget, so what we were gonna do without any objection from you is we're gonna pursue some cheaper alternatives and bring it back to the board for consideration, something that might get into our budget a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. By the next meeting, or how long will this take you?
No, I wouldn't
just
think
didn't
this
know
would
how big
happen
this
until
was.
after a contractor is assigned to the project, and we can work with him and see what we can do for it.
Okay, just want to make sure we didn't need it on the next agenda.
The only comment I would say, Dave, is make sure that your suggestions fit into what was passed on the millage. Okay?
Yep.
For your language.
Yep.
Thank you.
Lynn, one more thing for the road committee. We've had some people asking about four-wheelers on our roads and that. And I'd like to recommend that the board turns over to the planning commission to take a look at that and come up with some kind of ordinance, because that's part of our recreation area. Even, walking, biking, four-wheeler, they have to have a way to get from their house down to Wright Street or over here. So I think if we could have the planning commission take a look at that and come up with something for us.
Okay, right now, we don't have an easy way for ATVs, especially to get from one side of the township to the other if they want to go north. So
And they're being stopped by the sheriff's department, so.
there's no good way.
Carry
As
them out.
Ontario widens. that
So
would
we
make
have
the
to come
most
up with an
sense.
ordinance, some way to get them through the township from their residence to the Wright Street or someplace so they can get into the woods and that, so.
Yeah. We actually, right now, have no legal access for an ATV to get through the township.
So we have to come up with something.
So do we have to kind of do this in conjunction with the road project, so that would be something they'd have to
No.
kind of.
Well, not really. The issue is the township historically has had an option. The state of Michigan has an ORV ordinance. And the ORV ordinance allows local municipalities to adopt their own ordinance if they want something different than what the state requires. The township boards previously, and this township board hasn't addressed it, but the previous boards have always taken the position that they did not want to develop a specific ordinance for the township, so they fell into the state ordinance. And the state ordinance allows the operation of ORVs and ATVs on the state trunk lines and the county primary roads on the shoulder of the roads. We have no shoulders on our roads, so as a result, they cannot be on those roads. So
It's
what?
usually just two wheels on the gravel, and then you can have two on the.
Well, there was a revision that said, all four off, basically. So in the last iteration of it. So what has been discussed is we do have a potential access on Werner and Ontario, on the portions that are designated as county primary, from Commerce Drive to Ontario and then Ontario to Wright Street, that almost all, if not all, of the general roads in Trowbridge all connect one way or another to Ontario. So if Ontario could be identified as a backbone, in other words, still adopting the state's ORV ordinance in general, they're not going to, all of the roads aren't going to be open, but you could designate a specific route for people to get to the trailheads. So it's just a suggestion as an option. The Planning Commission has the road facilities plan, so they could look at it in conjunction with that.
And they would specify then that you're talking in, like in this case, Werner and Ontario?
Or whatever they think,
Have to be
or whatever they determine to be the reasonable routing to get through.
Wouldn't have to be a big, expansive ordinance?
No, it could be a relatively minor, a relatively short ordinance. You will, I mean, if you open it up fairly wide, you will get complaints from residents, because you'll be exceeding in the summertime in particular, when these are mostly used, you'll be exceeding the noise ordinance because it's not dark till 10 o'clock or after 10 o'clock for a very, very brief period, but at least for a period of time. So I think if you identify, or if the Planning Commission identifies a specific route or two for individuals to get through the township, then there'd be a fairly easy ordinance modification.
Then they would ride right on the road?
They would have to, as far to the side as they could.
Now, with side-by-sides, the new side, would be very popular, is that they're allowed to go on the road because they're licensed. Now, the problem is that the four-wheelers,
Or not.
they're not. So we have to find a way to get through, and I'd like to make a motion that we direct the Planning Commission to look into that and report back.
So to develop an ordinance, let's expound on it a little so they know the direction. Develop an ordinance to allow the ATV and ORV traffic on, what, 2 primary?
Well, just take a look at, maybe there might be 2 or 3, all depends
Okay,
how we
let
expand
them
it. You know,
The
the
transit-
best way,
okay.
the
you know, we could
transit
go
through.
down, like you said, go
You want to
down.
connect the trails,
Right.
basically.
Okay, connect the north and south trails through the
I
township.
mean, we're getting all this, we're working on an underpass underneath the highway. I mean, we have to make sure we include everybody into this thing, so. So I'd like to direct the planning commission and take a look at it and come back, report back what they come up with. They have more resources and stuff like that, so.
We have a motion, do we have support? Or a second? I can second it. I just don't typically. Questions then? Discussion? No? Is it clear enough, Randy?
Yeah, Planning Commission will be charged with looking at an ORV ordinance and reporting back to the board.
Okay.
So it doesn't, it's not pinning anything down, it's just
Right.
a report.
And I think their objective should be trail connectivity.
Trail, yeah.
North to south.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay. C is continued discussion of Peter White Public Library contract. Dave, did you want to speak first?
I'm not sure where we're at with the contract right now, and I know it's still in committee for all practical purposes. I'd just like to throw my 2 cents worth in there that I would really like to see the board come up with a 2-year contract, which is extended by 2 years, and then force it to be reviewed every 4 years. And I think one of the reasons that would be a good thing is there are some issues in the current structure of the library board that could be addressed in 4 years. And it would be easy enough for this board to put the library board on notice for some issues that it would like to take another look at when the contract comes up for discussion in 4 years. And if that was done with this contract this year, and I know it doesn't go hand in hand with the millage, but you're looking at another millage, and if the millage was done every 2 years or 4 years, then the millage would come up at the same time the contract review was coming up, and it'd give everybody a chance to take a look at that contract every 4 years. And it would enable the board to get their 2 cents worth in on some issues like representation on the board. I know it's a charter issue, but it can be fixed. It just takes more time than we currently have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We did have, we had a couple meetings. We ended up in the lawyer's office to try to see if there was something we could do at the time. But we do have a couple things. We've got some legality, whether it's legalese is what Roger usually kind of calls it, going from the library attorney side to our attorney's side. We've also got a little bit of a hiccup in that the state library librarian, thank you, I was just thinking that, would like a 3 to 4 year contract rather than 2. So I'm gonna have Roger give us whatever information he's gotten. And the state would also like, or was it the state or the attorney, would also like a 1 mil, the 1 mil being put on not as a renewal. If that's what I remember from our meeting. So now that may have changed, so you can,
I've heard nothing from the attorney since I spoke with you last on it. She is supposed to be getting back to us with some recommendations. The 1 mil renewal, I think, was a miscommunication by someone because that has never been voiced by anybody on this board and has never been voiced by anyone at Peter White Public Library, at least on any of the things I've participated in. So I think that's going to be a dead issue.
well, it was at our committee meeting, so it either came from, and I don't remember what Bruce said, it either came from the state librarian or their attorney.
It was from their attorney.
Was it?
It was from their attorney. I had that discussion. I had a very long discussion with their attorney. And she was advocating that that's what it should be based on her understanding of her discussions. But I think that was just a miscommunication. and she was to go back. And then there were some other relatively minor issues that I'm just waiting to hear back from, that in concept I didn't think changed much of anything. One of the issues was just a clarification of if the contract terminates by either side, when do the library services end? Is it December 31 of the year following the last levy? That's what's in there now. And in any event, that probably could use some minor clarification, and I'm waiting for a proposal from them, and I've heard nothing. The last conversation was, I think it'll be a week ago tomorrow.
Well, and they were waiting for, I haven't heard from Bruce back either since our meeting, because they're waiting for the state librarian to come back from a conference or something. And that was this week. So we may get something next Monday. I don't know, maybe possibly before our next meeting. But as it stands right now, the committee has kind of come to consensus that both entities are happy with what we have. So the legal side and finding out what the state librarian is going to accept, I guess, because they have the legal right to do that. That's going to be the sticking point. So there's really no update, but that's kind of an update. We're just kind of waiting right now. They will have a new director June 6th, and she's anxious to get going and find out, what she needs to learn, so we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Maybe I'll have something for you at the next meeting.
What is it, what's the language that's set up now, as of right now?
What you saw at the last meeting.
We're basically just in a static state.
And they were okay with the 2-year renewal and the 2-year contract and 2-year millage, and they were fine. And at the renewal, with the head of the reduction, everything was. So until we really know what we can and can't do, we really can't either make any changes or make any recommendations or anything yet. Yes, John?
Could we identify the source of the comment that the state librarian is asking for 4 years?
Yep, that's what Clerk Rattari.
I don't want to hear what the attorney from the library is saying. I want to know that the state librarian is making a request for a specific amount of time.
Right.
That is
Clerk Rattari
really, really unusual.
Emailed Bruce, and that's when we found out that she was on this at a convention or something. And he said the same thing. He wants in writing what legal reason there would be to make it 3 or 4 years. If not, we'll choose on our own then.
If it's just a thought or an opinion,
right,
I think we need to know that.
Yep.
I'll expand on that, Len. Before, when our committee meeting, it was stated about that, and I said, my comment was, why? Why only a 2-year thing? And that was what was stated from the state librarian, and I said, I told the interim director, Bruce, I would like to have that in writing first, and if it is in writing, why? And then we will meet with our attorney and discuss with them their reasons why a 2-year would not be acceptable. So that's where we're at with that, John. So we're
preference or something that's different. But.
So we're not going to spend any attorney time till we get something in writing.
No. Right. Okay, so we'll have another update. Don't worry. Let's see. Continue discussion of fire department apparatus replacement millage.
I only put this on the agenda because the last meeting when we discussed it, there really wasn't a determination whether you wanted to or not, and we just, with Clerk Rattari and I just need to know if you want to go forward, we need to get it ready to go on the ballot. If not, then we'll drop it. That's all.
I was all again, just to make sure, and I said to Randy, let's just see what direction the board wants to go, because I gave you the printout of what Dennis and Rob were going back and forth on with this last year. And he didn't ask, Dennis didn't ask enough in depth, but it does give you the definition a little bit better of assessment versus millage and how that comes into play. So what I'd like to find out is, personally, my question would be, and whether the board agrees, you know, y'all have your own opinions, but I'd like to know if we can have a line item, capital, whatever, capital expenditures, capital fund, whatever you want to call it, that allows us to put whatever amount of money away for a capital purchase, whether it's a truck or a piece of equipment or something. Now, in the past, and I don't know, maybe Randy knows or maybe Dan knows, what number is it, like 5,000, 50,000 that we had been expensing every year before we had to make this change? And so my second part of the question for Rob would be, if we can do that, is there also a stipulation that says you cannot set aside more than 1%, or you can't do this, or you have to make it this dollar, you know? I'd like to know those two things. First of all, can we do a line item that allows us to set money aside under our assessment, which is what we have now? And how would we determine that number? Or are we maxed out or minimumed out or whatever? So those two things. And so if we have to do any, you know, MTA works for us, and that's Rob Thal. So that's basically free, but there may be, you know, research or something else he has to do. So before I got us involved in spending more money legally, I wanted to get your feel for at least asking those questions, and if you have other questions for him, or if you have any of us or Randy.
One thing I would suggest is, because you'll be chasing yourself with emails for weeks, maybe at your next board meeting, set up a conference call with Rob Thal so all the board members can be part of that conversation.
But I'd like to have the questions ahead of time
Yeah.
too, so we know.
Well, I think where you're running into potential conflict from, you know, and I went back and read through that stuff too, and I think where you're running into potential conflict is what Rob was saying is that if you're on a special assessment, you can only assess for what your annual expected expenses for operation are, and you can't set aside money this year for a projected expense in a future year. That's what gets you into the issue of a tax issue, because you're exceeding what this year's benefit to the residents are. You know, planning for the future, and that's why he suggested, you know, he started talking the millage talk, you know, and possibly converting the special assessment to a millage generally. And Ron and I were talking about that, and at least for this year, we don't think that's a good idea, because there can be so many things on the ballot. And so much controversy with elections and a variety of things, that this would not be a good year to do it. And so we thought that, well, maybe the board might want to consider then starting in that direction with a small millage specifically for apparatus replacement, and that's what brought it to the board last time.
And the way we can help fund that, in my mind, anyway, when I was thinking through this, is, you know, if we find that number, whatever that budget number was, let's say it's 50,000, we can figure out what that millage would generate, what millage we would have to generate the 50,000, and then actually deduct it from the current fire millage. So if we're getting 2.5 mils right now, and we know that 50,000 was, I don't know, 0.2 mils, then we just convert it so that it isn't actually costing any more money.
But if you deduct from current budget, you'll be shorting your payment to the facilities, to the buildings.
Not if it's the same amount that we were contributing. It was part of the budget originally, in my mind, anyway. I
No,
don't
it
know
was
if
the excess. It was the excess as it was being contributed. It was
there wasn't a
beyond
steady number?
what was budgeted for operations.
That's because it was in the fund balance, and that's what they were saying, is
Yeah.
you can't have a fund balance.
Mhm.
So, even over the years, it had to have been a
I
pretty static amount.
understand, but what you're missing is, it was more than was necessary to operate the department for that year, because it was set aside. And that's what he's saying, that is an illegal tax by doing that.
Right, so we weren't using 2.5 mils.
Right.
We were
What he's
using
saying
less
is,
than
what
that.
he's saying is you weren't allowed to levy 2.5 mils. You were levying more millage than was necessary to operate that
That's
year.
why I'm saying we could reduce it to
No,
point.
you cannot use that to fund a future expenditure. That becomes a tax if you have a special assessment. That's what he's saying, and that's why I think it's a good idea to get him on the phone with all of the board members so you can ask him those questions and all of you hear the answers so there's no confusion.
Dan?
We used to put $100,000 away in the fund every year. And then any fund balance that was left at the end of the year was transferred into that fund, specifically for equipment.
Right.
And in discussions down in Detroit that you and I both sat through with Rob Thal and everybody else, that was acceptable because it wasn't a fund balance as it was because there's no way that you could possibly use your millage, your Public Act 33 millage, to pay for a vehicle in 1 year. So it was pretty much understood that this was specifically going for a vehicle. And we, like I said, we used to put $100,000 in that every year. And unfortunately, when we had to give the $80,000 back to the water department, that $100,000 disappeared. Because now our budget was, at that time, our budget was pretty much tight. So what it came down to was the money that was spent last year on spending down that fund balance that we had initially set up for a vehicle was and is used as when we purchased our other vehicles as a down payment for the vehicle, so we did not have to borrow as much money to pay for it. The only other millage we ever had for a apparatus was when we purchased the aerial truck, and we went out for a $500,000 on that. I believe it was a $500,000. Other than that, the department did as best they could with their budget to set aside money, knowing full well that at some point in time we're going to need another vehicle, and having that in there. And in discussions, like I said, in Detroit with Rob Thal, as well as other attorneys that were at that meeting, and as well as other managers that I talked to later on and supervisors, that was an acceptable thing that they did. When they did their annual audit of their finances, the auditors understood that that's what that fund was for. It wasn't going to be used for anything other than as a down payment for a purchase of a vehicle. You couldn't go in there and take it out for purchasing bunker gear or whatever. That money was specifically set aside for that vehicle, knowing that's the only way a fire department these days can afford to actually get another vehicle. They don't have $800,000 or $1 million sitting aside someplace in 1 year that they could actually use to do it. So that's kind of where that was from.
I agree. That is what's happened historically. I think that, this is a question before we get into the budget sessions needs to be answered. And everybody needs to be on the same page, or whatever it is, whichever page it is, whether it's page 1 or page 5. From a budget standpoint, I need to know when we're getting into the budgets here, so we can work on it. But I would suggest that maybe the board consider that we set up a conference call during the next board meeting and have him explain it, our specific situation with the 2.5 mils as a special assessment and a special assessment district. Now, the benefit of that, and you saw it in that document that was passed out earlier, is a special assessment is into perpetuity. That's pretty much forever. You have a public hearing every so often to renew it, basically, but it's not an election and it's not a vote. Millage is for a time limit specific, not more than 20 years. Can't go beyond 20 years.
Wonder if, Dan, if any of those managers and supervisors you talked to, if they all had special assessments versus millages. Did you happen to qualify that?
Yes, they were under Public Act 33.
Ernie?
I think listening to what's been talked about last time and tonight and reading what Thal sent here, maybe the best thing is asking directly very direct questions to the individual, so we know where we're at in that too. So
Yeah, this is our specific situation. Where are we?
And I think what Dan is saying from what he heard at the conference it's being done. We just have to find out how it's being done and why it's being done that way. And we go from there. I think last time I was talking about, we're getting into budget, so we really have to know what the budget for the fire department is as to if they're going to have any additional funds
Right.
over and above what their budget says. And that, we don't know, because last year, they were under the gun to have to expend everything they had. And what was left over went towards the building. So they have to now look at what they're going to need and how much they want to put toward the building and what's going to be left over, which could possibly put in a line item at some point in that too. But you look at the aerial truck, I think we spent under $400,000 back in the 90s for that. Now it's over $1 million. And $50,000 a year, that's 20 years to generate enough funds to bring up $1 million to replace that. So if something happens to that in the next year, we're going out on a bond or something like that, because there's no way we can replace it on that, so that's all.
The telephone calls serve a good purpose.
And
Yeah, John?
And part of the questioning, the preparation for asking the questions is, one of them, and I think you were headed towards this, is it an item specific, or are you better off to have, say, apparatus, or not a category rather than a specific item that will bind you and keep you from using it in a more liberal way. The other thing is that one of your questions that you were preparing, I thought, was, would this action, if you took it, would it prevent you from having another action of another, say, a second millage, or that? So that's one of the questions that I think we need to get from the authority.
Yeah, and I think actually the basic question that he needs to answer is, we have an Act 33 special assessment of 2.5 mils. What can we apply that 2.5 mils to for future purchases, for future acquisitions? I mean, and that's really the question. It's, can we somehow set aside more than we actually need to operate this year for future purchases, whether it's apparatus or building or whatever? I think that's the base question, and then from there you can go far afield.
Yeah, what if we decided, what if the equipment we figure is gonna last another 15 years, but in 5 years, we need another bay added to the building or something?
What if
That
you
would
just-
still be a capital purchase or.
What if you decide you want another type of vehicle that you don't currently have?
What if we get rid of Seagrave truck?
Well, even, let's say it miraculously fixes itself and we keep it, but what if you decide you want some other specialty type of a vehicle? How can you fund it?
Yeah, what if we wanted to do an ambulance?
Ambulance.
We've talked about, Ron and I have talked about that, that would up or actually lower, is the correct term, our ISO rating. If we decided we wanted to get into EMS ambulance stuff, we shouldn't say just EMS,
Or
because.
something we aren't
Whatever.
even aware of now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
right. So.
I mean, so that's the real question.
How would
Can you set money aside for a future acquisition under the special assessment
But we'd still
formula?
want it restricted. We would want to not, take money out of there to pay the cable bill or something.
Right.
We want
Oh,
to
yeah,
make sure.
Yes, but you also need an answer to that, so you can deal with the question of, do you want to stay on a special assessment, or do you want to convert to a millage? Go for a 20-year millage. So you have a finite amount, but that will then be subject to Headley rollback, which an assessment is not.
Spoiled now.
So, each one has pluses and minuses. It's just which one best suits your purpose going long-term forward.
Well, maybe we'll get on the phone with Rob tomorrow. We'll try to, Randy, and see if we can get this organized, and if we need to do another call or something for our meeting. Randy?
In any event, it's not going to happen on the August ballot because May 10th is your deadline, so we're
At
not.
the earliest, it'd be November.
Yeah, so, I would not recommend November because there's going to be lots of millage questions.
Yeah.
The ballot's going
Scare
to be,
people away.
it's going to be long enough to start with, and you put I might need 2 ballots.
It's gonna be a crowded ballot.
Okay, that's good, but we needed that discussion, so that's why we put that on here. E is continued discussion of BLP energy project. I know you guys have all heard and seen in the paper and all of the changes now that are coming down the pike from the BLP. I did talk to the mayor last night, and unbeknownst to me, because they're a city-owned entity, I thought the city commission controlled the BLP. And he said, no, the only place we come into play is with rates.
They are a creature of the city's charter.
Don't we love that chart?
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, the playing field has changed, and someone said that tonight, and that's the best way to refer to it, because the original plan was going to be, what, 70 million or something, and that had, I believe, a 20% contingency, and we had them, a couple of people here, and they spoke and explained what happens with the emissions, what happens with the noise, and it's the sound of a vacuum, and because where they are is right across from our residential area, so that's a concern. So in the meantime of all this changing, now they've decided to go with, I thought it was going to be a refurbished, and now I've been told it's like a unit that had been sold to somebody and then they gave it back, whether they actually used it,
No.
maybe? Okay, so the unit is bigger, so now they've got to add $400,000 to make the building bigger, and it doesn't have the same guarantee or warranty as the new one that we were going to get. And I'm just worried about all this stuff, and I don't know what we want to do or can do, or if you care, or if we need to talk about it. But yeah, John, you did have something you wanted to share.
Yeah, they certainly have the right to go ahead and do what they're doing, and they've done this with the approval of their board, of their professional people, and they've also, because they seek the faith and credit of the city, they went to the commission as well. So while the commission can take a walk on this, they still have a role that they play. And so I've written up what I think is necessary because they're changing the equipment. So I've written this and passed it out to everybody here. The City of Marquette Board of Light and Power revised planned energy site power generation equipment. That's what it's about. And the Board of Light and Power representatives at our January meeting of the new energy site informed, the information meeting that they had assured us that our community would not be adversely impacted by any air or noise pollution emanating from the equipment they then planned. Since then, because an earlier model of generation equipment is now being purchased at a savings in replacement of generation equipment previously indicated, it is appropriate that our township, through our township manager, obtain assurance of the following. One, that the towers that will come with the older model replacement generators will be sufficient in height that they will thrust startup emissions to a level so as not to adversely impact the residents we have living on the bluff south of the energy site. The second thing that I'd like our manager to obtain is that the noise made by the replacement generators will not be greater than that reported of the generators previously planned to be purchased. If the noise emission is greater, is the higher decibel level such that it will not be viewed as pollution? These questions are asked because our township property line is located just 1,000 feet away from the front door of the present B&L office complex next to the planned energy site. In response to these two questions, if it's received and recorded by our township manager, that's all that will be required. But it's the kind of information I think that we need to see. And if they change it again, we'll go back and ask for it all over again.
Any other comments? Questions?
After our meeting the other night, I was talking to Dave Lynch today, and I just told him about the misinformation that's out there, and they should clear that up. And then he started explaining. I said, you have to explain. It's just, I'm telling you, the misinformation out there, at least we can discuss what's out there, the real information, not start going down a different road of, oh, this was that, and like you said, it was used equipment, and it wasn't used equipment, and all these other things. So if they can get the facts out there, so we know the facts, instead of some of these rumors or something like that. So he said he was going to do that somehow through emails to the townships and cities and stuff like that, so.
Do we need to ask him to come back and explain himself?
I'm satisfied. If you want to have him back, that's another question, but I'm satisfied if our township manager can seek a communication from them that's official, that says that it isn't going to be a burden for us noise-wise or pollution-wise with the new equipment. It's different than the answers they gave us back in January. Well, then, that's fine. We can live with that. We'll have a written document to deal with if, in fact, it exceeds those levels. And that's all we need. We don't need to keep beating the dead horse. If they've taken care of it, fine. If you want to have them back afterwards, if you get kind of a spooky answer, well then, go ahead and do that. But I think that all they need to do is answer it officially, and that's good enough for us, for our people. Actually, it's good enough to use with the state if in fact it isn't accurate.
I'm concerned about the increase to the cost too. If we're looking at 30 to 40% increase in rates, what's gonna happen with the extra 400,000? And that's a guesstimate anyway. Who says it's not 500,000? I mean, it's like, did you not think this through a little bit? Go ahead, Ernie.
Following the same line there, looking and reading what's in the paper and not having anything else to go by, and that when they start talking about the structure that they have to build to hold this and that, and the problems they're coming up with, they're concerned with, and the question and I'm no engineer or anything else, didn't they do any soil borings or doing any testing before this all got done? And that's, they knew the weight from this, what these things would be, so they should have some idea what this land would hold in that. And we don't know what that cost is gonna be. I don't think they do either at this point in time. And the next big thing is how they're gonna get it from Lake Superior to the site that they've chose in that. They come up a couple different ways, but what's the cost gonna be? They haven't come up with that either, so there's so many unknowns, financially unknowns. They talk 30% increase in October, plus other consultants, another 4.5 coming up in the next 3 to 4 years. I have a feeling that we better put our seatbelts on, because I got a feeling it's gonna be a lot more than that,
Well, they're talking about building docks and everything else out in the lake, and how they're gonna get it here, and the road commission is saying you are not going on Wright Street. Helicopter they're gonna have to rent and bring it in pieces, I mean, it's just like, they didn't think about all this stuff. That's part of the planning.
The young lady that was there at the chamber meeting made a comment that they won't go by the lake there. They're gonna have to build that. She says it's gonna take 18 hours to go from the lake over to where it's gonna set. and I got the 18 hours. They're gonna be moving at a mile an hour or less, and how big a unit, and how they're gonna do it, and there's 4 units
Power
coming.
lines?
Oh, the power line, everything,
I don't think,
it's going,
3 units.
3 units, 18 hours to
yeah,
move
it
them
was
and that?
2 and now
Wow.
it's 3.
All I know is, you're gonna need a, increase, everyone is, in their salary to start paying for all the rates they're gonna come through.
John?
I clearly understand everybody's concern. I've read the articles in the paper too, but the bottom line is, they have the independent authority to determine the best means to provide electric service to their customers. What we can do, and what we have an obligation to do, is make sure that our community is not adversely impacted. That's what we can do. And the rest of it, we're gonna have to leave that with them and their taxpayers, and our taxpayers.
Good observation. All right, do we need to, does anybody have a motion or something they want to do, or are we good on this?
Can we,
You want to make a motion to direct the
I'll
manager?
make a motion
You
to
just
have
direct me.
our manager meet the requirements of the letter that's been advanced.
2 items for the next meeting, hopefully?
Send it to them
To have it to us, though.
Yeah.
So,
As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
if our manager
Yes.
makes the request, what we really need to see is the return.
Response.
okay.
We'll just have to make sure Randy goes over it and make any change that it has to, and then get it to him and get a response.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Just make a copy.
Well, we're charged with deliberating, folks, so I think we're doing, we're doing our job tonight. Continued discussion of capital improvements plan. This should be shorter because, and I know Mike wanted to speak. The Planning Commission's charge, as of a few years ago, legislatively, was to generate and present the capital improvement plan to the board for the budget. I've worked with Kirk a little bit on just a simple spreadsheet to put that information in, and we're gonna get together and finalize that. And Planning Commission's already been working on it, so this is kind of more of an update, and I don't know if, Randy, if you wanna add anything, because you're our commissioner.
Well, we haven't been working on it lately, but I think, talking to my fellow commissioners at the last meeting, they assured me it was basically close to being done. If that's what I understand, from the planning commission level. And basically, we need board, well, it's ours anyway, it's not the board's, but the planning commission needs to get it done and then present it to the board in a work session, and then we can move forward on it. So I'm thinking that the board would just make a motion to tell the planning commission just to finish the CIP, and then when they're done, we'll have a work session with them.
Yeah, that'd be good to have us all together. So Mike, you wanted to make a comment first? Okay. First, you put your hand up.
I'm here on behalf of the rec committee again, because we've discussed this, and we've had it on our agenda a number of times, more earlier in the year, and we were told that the board was working on this. And, the rec committee feels that it's imperative to be included in the capital improvement plan. We should be part of that. It really helps. We have a board-approved plan with lots of action items in it that we would like to move forward with, but just even like, for example, this year, and I know as a result of tax tribunal and dark store issues, there just wasn't any money, but what we like to do is go out and leverage our money. We can basically take whatever match money we get and pretty much turn it over, multiply it by 3 times, pretty close to that. And so that helps us if we know we have some money to work with decide what grants we're gonna go after and how we can move ahead with our plans. Mr. Wiegand did some research through some of the Planning Commission minutes and agendas, and he noted as far back as 2009, it's been a request of the rec committee to be part of the capital improvement program. So as far as the rec committee, we would love to be part of that, and hopefully the board will give the Planning Commission that directive. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.
Well, I can respond a little bit. I'm sure Randy's got more history than I, but the committees, again, are part of the board, and it's not as though you'd have your own budget. It still falls under the Planning Commission side, actually, is who you answer to or work toward or, work with. So, I guess that would be, Randy, do you suppose we could give them one of the worksheet request forms to get an idea of whatever programs, yes, whatever programs the board is expecting them to work on, they can give us a price through the CIP, and that might, because normally, like I said, the committee doesn't have its own budget, so if they make a recommendation, we know we've charged them to do this is what it's
Actually-
gonna cost, because they're the ones that are supposed to do the legwork anyway.
Well, the rec committee and the road committee are very similar. The road committee, you gave the road committee a project. Figure out how to fix the roads. They went out and researched, and they came back with you with a proposal that you accepted. And Mike's right, the Planning Commission recommended and the board approved. The Planning Commission has the ability to adopt plans, basically. So they recommended, you approved, and it was adopted a recreation plan. The recreation plan has lots of things in it. What should be happening is the Recreation Committee should be submitting to you a list of the projects that they want to pursue, that the board would then consider and determine which the board wants to fund. And those would be the projects that you would work on. And that should be the process. I mean, I know the Recreation Committee will have a pecking order, basically, of what they feel are the most important to the least important of the listed items in the recreation plan. Submit those to the board consider those, determine which of those the board wants to go forward with funding, and then we build that into the CIP and the budget.
Okay. All right. So rather than just giving them the form, we'd really want to have them make some recommendations based on that.
Well, some of the items out of the recreation plan we're already working on. I mean, we're trying to get the underpass done, we've got some trail connectivity things going on, we've got the safe routes to school, which are, in essence, trails. I'm going to call them trails, that's what they are. We're talking about an ordinance to link the trails for ORVs and ATVs. So I think of those remaining, I don't know what they are, in terms of the order, but to submit those as a list, just like you did with the road committee, submit those as a list to the board, saying, here are the projects that we think are the important projects for this community to pursue. The board then stirs those in with the rest of the budget request, determines which ones you want to fund, at what level, and you build it in the budget. Could be through, it's a little bit different format than capital improvement, because it's really not a capital project. It's I'll call it a wish list. These are the things that we think are important. We can get some match money, for this investment, wherever it's going to come from. Recreation, are in the trust funds, basically, the various trust funds, or other entities that have grant funds available. If you can put up so much money for whether it's property acquisition or whether it's Swimwood Park improvements or whatever it is, that they would list, the board would look at that list and say, all right, we're going to put this in our capital plan for the next 5 years, and here's how we're going to fund it, and that kind of thing as part of the budget.
But that's easily attainable, putting their suggestions into the CIP too. So.
Mm-hmm.
Let me talk to you tomorrow.
Danny?
Yes, Dan?
under the general fund, we have recreation that's plotted in there. And that's where we decide how much money is going to be put towards recreation. So
But
they
that's
could,
already-
they could ask whatever they want, and it's all going to go down to the end of it, dollar and cents wise, whether we have enough, what we can put in that fund.
Right. Right now, that recreation is Lions Field and the things that we currently have projects in. So it's, that's our internal recreation. I think what Mike's talking about is future, looking forward in terms of what it is you want to do. And those would be special projects that could also be put in there, but would have to be a separate line item.
Okay. Dave, did you want to add anything? Oh, you'd love to? I had to ask.
It just occurs that what we're talking about is the same thing that any other department does. They submit a capital improvement program, and the planning commission goes through a vetting process and determines what they want to recommend to the board. That's the same thing the rec committee is asking to do, is we're asking to put together a wish list and give it to the planning commission, and they determine what's reasonable and what's not reasonable, and they submit that to the board. I mean, it still sounds like a capital improvement program to me.
It is.
Okay. I'll get together with Mike tomorrow.
So Lynn, to get this off center, I'll make a motion. We charge the planning commission to finish the CIP with any resources they need. So.
Motion and support. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And then after we're done, we'll have a work session with the board and move on from
Maybe we
there.
can schedule that next meeting. Okay, we'll do that next time. New business. Consider resolution regarding floodplain management ordinance. Now, these next three items are kind of all together, but they need to be done separately. Manager, if you can give us the backup.
Actually, all three can be discussed together, but they would take two separate actions. As you'll recall, we had the floodplain issue come before you last time, and you adopted a floodplain resolution. We submitted that resolution to the state. The state is now looking for an actual ordinance. The way we have done this in the past, I went back and reviewed the ordinances, and since about 1995, we've had a series of ordinances. And basically what it amounts to is a floodplain project falls under the state building code. Now, what we've done is we've done individual ordinances through the county to cover all of the aspects of the state building code: plumbing, electrical, mechanical, flood, all of those. We've done separate ordinances identifying the building codes department and the building official as the agent for the township to enforce the flood provisions of the building code. That's not good enough anymore. The state wants a separate ordinance specifically dealing with floodplain management. So we've drafted an ordinance, and that is what you see under number B, under 10B, is the ordinance that we've drafted. In order for the board to be able to accept that ordinance tonight and act on the ordinance, there needs to be an emergency declaration. Basically, what we've done is we've drafted under A, a resolution that identifies that right now there is a potential that our residents will not be qualified for flood insurance. That creates an emergency this time of the year because we do have a floodplain in the township, the Dead River system. So the resolution that we're asking you to adopt under A establishes that there is an emergency need that then gives you the ability to act on the ordinance tonight that we already have scheduled to run in the Mining Journal tomorrow that will make it effective tomorrow. So the residents will not lose coverage under the flood insurance program.
They gave
Seemed
us 1 hour notice that we had to have this done.
No, half an hour.
So
It was
moved.
4 o'clock,
4
that's right, it
o'clock,
was
yeah.
4 o'clock.
So moved to adopt the
You
resolution.
need two
Or-
motions, one to adopt the resolution and then one to receive and to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I got it
You
already.
got it. You can do the next ones.
Yes.
Roll call, too.
Both have to be roll calls.
So this is to do the resolution.
Yeah, I'll just read the last paragraph, which kind of sums it up. Now therefore Therefore, be it resolved that the Marquette Charter Township Board of Trustees hereby resolves that the emergency conditions exist with the spring thaw and rain events reasonably creating hazardous impacts to health, safety, and welfare of the township, residents, visitors, and property, justifying consideration and adoption of the proposed floodplain management ordinance at the May 4th meeting. And this will be in the minutes as referenced. So the roll call vote will be Trustee Marks.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Pompo.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
And Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
That motion carries 6 yes, 0 no, and 1 absent.
I'll
Okay.
make-
No, go ahead, sorry. Go
And I'll
ahead.
make a motion now we adopt the ordinance addressing the floodplain management provision of the state construction code.
Support.
And that is ordinance number 050416.
Anything else? Any comments, questions?
We've already been through this, what, twice?
Mm-hmm.
3.
Okay, roll call vote is Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee Pompo.
Yes.
Trustee Marks.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
That motion again carries 6-0 and 1 absent.
Okay. I like that. We can do them 3 at a time.
That will be in tomorrow, I don't know if I already set the run before that, so it will be effective upon publication.
It just runs once? We don't need anything else? Okay. Do we send a copy to the county, or how do we notify them it's
We'll send
okay?
it to everybody, send it to the state, tomorrow, once it comes out in the Mining Journal, we will email it to the state, email it to the county. It'll be done.
Okay, good. Randy?
And I will make one final motion that we designate the clerk and the supervisor to sign the ordinance.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. I think it just says 1.
There's actually 2.
Okay, maybe, I thought that was for them. Okay. Okay. New business 10D, consider ordinance on deed restrictions.
This is follow-up to discussion at the last board meeting with regard to the big box dark store issues. There was a recommendation from one attorney to consider, I shouldn't say a recommendation, there was documentation provided that indicated that one response that the township could have would be to adopt an ordinance that would provide that any deed restrictions placed upon a big box or any other commercial entity for purposes of tax reduction would not be considered a reduction in value. Subsequently, 2 other attorneys have said, you can't do that. So I guess what I'm asking you to do is to defer this to the next meeting until we get additional information. There is controversy and conflict about just what a township can do to impact the result of the big box decisions from the tax tribunal. The primary issue is that a charter township only has those authorities that are either expressly identified by the Constitution or reasonably inferred from the Constitution, and none of those type events fall under that definition. So we're trying to figure out how we may be able to, since nothing is happening in Lansing, and it doesn't appear since Mr. Aboud has been appointed to the tribunal that any of our pleas are going to be heard or even considered, we're trying to figure out how we recover some of that revenue.
I'll move we defer this agenda item to the next meeting under old business.
Lots of support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We scrapped 10E, so the new 10E is consider large-scale development options. Falls back to the manager again.
Actually, the same issue. It got put on here twice.
Oh, just,
It was a
okay.
carryover from the last agenda.
Thought that was talking about the bigger ones, okay.
No, that was the same thing, it just got carried over.
Okay, so we can jump to F then. Consider appointment to Community Events Committee. We did receive one application that's in your packet from an individual in the township who wants to help with either the events committee or the election. And the election is a little bit more involved than people think, so the recommendation was for the events committee.
I move to appoint Barbara Lingard to the events committee.
Or
Motion and support. Any comments, suggestions, ideas?
Anyone who wants to help something,
Yeah.
let's get them on.
Yeah. And that's a fun committee to be on anyway. I'm sure she'll have a good time. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Welcome, Barbara.
So I
We
think that,
appreciate it.
what are the terms? I think 1 year or something?
Yes.
On that, so it'll be to the end of this year will be the terms.
Coming in later. Okay, consider UPEA recommendation for 2016 bidding and construction administration.
Mark is here still, and what you have before you lists a number of tasks on it. What we're dealing with tonight is actually task 500 in that proposal. And I think Roger did have some question with regard to the indemnification language.
I did. I didn't see the contract until I was going through the board packet this afternoon. It wasn't specifically run past me. But essentially, there's a case from 1999 that basically prohibits a municipal entity such as a township from entering into an indemnity agreement of this nature. So there's nothing further in the contract as proposed that I have any issue with, but that will have to be reworded, and that provision will essentially have to be eliminated.
Randy?
So that can't happen tonight, so I will move this agenda item to the next meeting under old business. Correct?
Roger?
You could adopt it subject to, you could, I guess, approve it subject to the revision with attorney approval or something to that effect, and I could put something together on that.
Well, my question would be to Mark, if we didn't act on this to next meeting, would that change anything, or would it, or what would be the, come up to the,
Yeah, we need the microphone.
I mean, it's gotta be changed, so,
Roger, would you actually change it
Yeah,
or
we-
eliminate it?
Well, I
Are you
guess-
eliminate that paragraph? What are you recommending? So Mark knows, I guess.
Well, I guess we have to have some discussion with them, perhaps, as far as what's going to be acceptable, but this isn't the first time this has come up in a municipal contract. We had this come up in the design-build contract for this building and for the fire hall, where it came up in, the master deed for Mason's Bluff. This has come up in other years gone by, so there's,
So it has to go away? that
it's
paragraph?
got to, we cannot basically indemnify for contingent events that haven't happened yet. And I can provide the legal citation on that. It is Pool, P-O-O-L, I'm sorry, Michigan Municipal Liability and Property Pool versus Muskegon County Road Commissioners. And it's a Michigan Court of Appeals case from 1999. And there have been some other cases since that, but it would be beyond the scope of our authority to enter into something like that.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, for that task 500, it's pretty much a new task to include the construction inspection. And with postponed 2015 work starting in a week and a half, that's where it was kind of crucial to get started on that, so we can actually start the construction inspection. As far as the agreement, usually what we've done in the past is we will send the recommendation with their proposal and price, and the board will approve it. Then later we'll send the agreement to Randy. That way. Usually it happens after the fact, the next day after the board approves to move forward with the task 500. In this case, I actually attached the agreement as well onto the recommendation. Maybe it's best to just.
So you need to run it through who?
What's that?
If that indemnification clause is something that Roger's saying needs to be removed, who do you have to pass
I
that
would
to
have to
for
run that
approval?
through our corporate office with them.
Okay.
Sure that they're-
So the board could approve the agreement contingent upon the indemnification being Modified or removed?
Modified / removed. Well, we
Up-
can't do
up
an,
to
in-
Roger.
we can't do an indemnification along those lines, is the bottom line. So there's, at least part of it has to be removed.
So it would be approved pending Roger's approval of the indemnification language.
So at least we wouldn't have to wait for another
Sure.
meeting if everything.
Right.
It just means the two of you need to get together, or whoever
Yeah.
you have to have see it.
I could have our corporate office contact.
That'll work.
Okay.
So the motion will be to approve the contract pending the modification of the indemnification
Or task 500.
or task 500.
Okay. Yes, Ernie,
We putting a dollar amount in there too?
in the motion?
Yeah,
At 98,000.
98,000.
Check with your motion
I
maker.
thought that was John.
Yes.
And trustee Pompo? Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
I just have a question. Is it supposed that the clerk will sign it?
I usually sign those. They usually come back to me
But I
after
see-
Roger approves it.
My name's on there, so I can sign it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Catch me. Okay. So we're good, Mark? You don't need anything
Yeah,
else?
I'll have our contact.
I'm glad you stayed then, I appreciate it, since I didn't know about that either.
Yeah, just with the inspection coming up, we were actually gonna start next week, laying stuff out, allow it.
Okay, good, thank you. We're down to manager's report.
And I will be very brief unless board members have questions. The main thing I want to pass along to those watching YouTube and the residents that would watch us at the next broadcast, the two community events that are currently scheduled. The first one is Saturday, June the 25th, which is the Catch the Vision Car Show and Cruise. Will again be held at the Westwood Mall, but the location will not be next to Applebee's. It'll be in front of Kohl's. So it's a little bit different structure. We're a little closer to the two entrances off of Werner and Commerce for easier access. And then Saturday, August 6th is the Catch the Vision Community Days at Lions Field. Like in previous years, music, food, fun, activities for kids. This year we'll be adding a basketball tournament along with a softball tournament, which is likely going to be Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, a longer tournament. The basketball tournament will be on the ice rink.
Anything for the manager? Nope. Okay. Then we're back to public comment. If somebody wants to make a comment, ask a question. Everybody's good? How about additional board member comments? Yes, Ernie?
All set.
A question I have for Mike Springer. He mentioned a couple dates, some activities were going on. I'm wondering if he would repeat them again and that, and maybe put them out on our website too at the same time?
They'll be on our calendar as well.
Thank you, Treasurer Johnson. It's always good to get this information out more than once. May 21st is a cleanup that will run from 11 until 1. It's 2 hours. We'll be starting at Schwemmwood Park. We'll clean up there. We'll move over to Lions Field, clean up there, and it'll be followed by a barbecue. And then on June the 4th, that's a Saturday, we celebrate National Trails Day at Schwemmwood Park. And the last 2 years previous to this year, and this year as well, we're supporting the Iron Range Roll, which is a family event that leaves Ishpeming at 1 p.m. and we'll be running through our township half hour, couple hours after. So those are the two big events that the rec committee is sponsoring and working on this year.
Mike, how you doing the barbecue? Who's going to pay for that or volunteer it? Do you need help or money
I'm going
or?
to have a meeting with Todd Caruth tomorrow. We're meeting and we're going over that, and he has done these things before. He's also arranging for a number of volunteers from his church and Boy Scouts, and so he's be relying on him a lot.
Who's gonna pay for it then? Is it just donations?
Well,
or-
that's our plan, and
That-
Mr.
to talk
McCarthy
about.
and I plan to go over to Walmart and talk to Ross Rosenau, the manager. In the past, they've contributed and helped with feeding the troops and also providing us with garbage bags and gloves and stuff like that.
I would
And so
strongly
we do
recommend that you get pre-cooked brats or whatever, so you don't have to deal with the health department.
Sounds like a good idea, Randy, thank you.
We're not gonna feed them.
Anything else you want to share? No, okay. Good. Okay, thanks. Anything else from the board? Oh, can't yet.
One last
I
item.
didn't get a chance to look this way, John, sorry. Go ahead, Randy.
I'd just like to, one last item, just like to congratulate the City of Marquette and Lakeview Arena for winning Hockeyville. They are going to get $150,000 in arena upgrades, and they are going to host the Buffalo Sabres and Carolina Hurricanes on October 4th, which is a Tuesday night, the night of our board meeting. So we might have to change that. And I don't know the specifics on how tickets are going to be available yet. They're working with Kraft on that, so hopefully that'll be coming out soon.
What was that date?
October 4th will be the preseason game at the Lakeview Arena. So, so good job for, I know people in the township voted for the arena, so good job, everyone, and we finally won something.
I hope it helps. We need the new roof there for sure. Pete?
Just want to comment on a young lady still here from the school. You'll pass.
If they're giving you trouble, you just tell them to
Yeah.
call us.
Well, I see the rest of us had other plans, but I mean, it was nice that she stuck out. Thank you.
To the bitter end.
Ernie?
What the clerk brought up about the game that they're going to host in October, I don't think I want to be on that committee that's going to determine how the tickets are going to be allocated in that, because it's going to be a Donnybrook in that too.
All right, I'll give yours away then.
Well, the only thing I know is, and I can't say, I don't know how they're going to give the tickets out, but it is going to be nationally televised. So if you can't be at the arena, you can watch it on NBC Sports. So
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it sure is.
Now, John.
Move to adjourn.
support.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned, 9:35.
Where's that?